So somebody asked me, why has my spiritual awakening just stopped? It can sometimes feel like you taste the sense of your true nature. You see something, you experience something, you witness something, and almost as quickly as the fact you've seen it, it disappears again. And you can find yourself grasping for it and wishing and desiring that you could get it back. This can lead to a cyclical problem where you feel that grasping it back is actually creating suffering, and that because you're trying to grasp and because you're in this suffering, therefore you're not still witnessing what you've seen, and therefore you must have been removed from that, or maybe even what you tasted or what you experienced wasn't real at all. This is a very natural part and a natural process of spiritual awakening. A metaphor that may help you understand this is a single star. When the universe was just a single star old, it was perfect. The universe was perfect. Nobody could have seen that and said that is not a perfect universe, because it was the entire universe. It was also perfect, and yet importantly, it was also still becoming. If we then fast forward to when the universe was 1,000 stars in size, so obviously infinitely smaller than it currently is, the universe at that point of 1,000 stars in size was still perfect. It was still a perfect universe, and it was still becoming. The problem that we can sometimes face as apparent individuals, until we've truly seen and are able to rest in our true nature and fully remove the illusion of separation, is we feel there is a black and a white situation. We see the white, we feel that oneness, we have some sense or experience of togetherness, of truth. I've had multiple experiences like this in my lifetime of, openings, stars feeling like stars are rushing into my brain during meditation, looking around at objects and feeling everything is made of the same material, including myself, my family, rocks, plants, feeling that sense of oneness very intimately, and even looking out across the fields far into the distance and sensing that there is no hedgerows, no this field, that field, no here or there. It's just everything is an expanse of this one thing, including my observing and the me, and looking out through the eyes and seeing myself. So there are very many different versions and variations of these glimpses of truth, but quite often they are merely that. They are a glimpse, they're an experience, and as such, the experience is not the true nature of what you are. It is merely a glimpse or a momentary look or peek through a sample of that true nature. When we're still hung up on being separate individuals and believing we're a personal self, we feel that separation and we crave and yearn more of those type of experiences. And any time we're not within those experiences, we feel that we're not furthering our spiritual development, or we've somehow fallen back, or that it's stopped. But anything that ceases to be is not who we are. And spiritual awakening or enlightenment, very simply, is the complete realization of the reality of what or who you are. It's not a temporary thing. Once it has been fully seen and realized, it cannot be unrealized. It cannot be unseen. So anything that's temporary, such as an experience, a perception, a sensation, a thought, a relationship, an object, anything that can be temporary or temporary, is not what you are. What you are is what remains as all of this passes through. Like the blue sky is the permanence and the unchanging background to the weather. You wouldn't describe the weather as, you wouldn't describe the sky as rain or sunshine or snow. The sky is always blue. Occasionally it is masked by the weather, but the weather is always temporary and it's always changing. Regardless of what it's doing, whether it's clouds, rain, thunderstorms, snow, or no clouds, the blue sky is permanently always there. So there comes a point in your spiritual awakening, which mistakenly is sometimes referred to as a path or a journey, which again is what the personal individual can get attached to, thinking, how far along am I? What is my progression? How am I scoring against somebody else? Whereas it's not really a journey at all. It ends up being a journey along a path where you look for signs to see if you're in the right way. But eventually the signs disappear, the path disappears, and the traveler disappears. And ultimately you're left only with what you always were, and you're left with a true seeing of what you never have been. To try and explain this using a metaphor in relation to this feeling as if your awakening has started, and you're dipping in and out of this awareness, and you feel this very dizzying disorientation and frankly frustration around not being able to maintain the vision and the truth and the beauty that you've witnessed. I'd like you to imagine that you're suspended upside down by a rope. So you're suspended upside down by a rope. So your head is towards the ground. Now, the tide is coming in. And as the tide comes in, it submerges your head because you're head first, because you're upside down. Now you panic because the water rises up and it covers your head, and you thrash around and you lift yourself up as you're upside down on this rope so that your head is out of the water, because you're not used to being in the water. It scares you. It's something new. It feels different. It feels alien. So you go from being submerged in the water at the head level to then being not submerged because you lift yourself out. It's freaking you out, okay, in this metaphor. Then the tide comes in further, and you cannot stop the tide. The tide comes in even further and even deeper this time. And this time your head, because you're upside down, your head is submerged in the water and your heart is submerged in the water. So at this point, you not only think and understand what water is like, but you also feel in your heart what water is like. But still, it's freaking you out. So you thrash around, you contort on this rope, and you lift yourself out of the water. So again, you go back and forth. You don't have the energy to permanently lift yourself out of the water or permanently remain in the water, because that seems like a terrifying option, like you would drown. But eventually, a tide comes in, and the tide rises so high, which is inevitable eventually, that it actually immerses not only your head, your heart, but also your gut, in fact, everything, and you're fully immersed in the water. But at this point, something strange happens, and you don't start thrashing around And the reason is because you're a fish. Now, that's kind of a strange metaphor to use, but it's kind of explains and hopefully helps you understand this transition, as it really feels initially like you're going from one world to another and behaving and operating in one way initially, and then operating in a totally different way in a totally new world from a different orientation, almost like from being a person to being a different animal or a different entity on the other. And it can be very confusing, disorientating, and frustrating during this time, but hopefully this has helped you a little bit.